Okay, I'm going to assemble the spindle assembly. So I have a 6mm diameter by 100mm long steel rod. It's ground. I have a 606Z ball bearing. The Z just means it has shields instead of seals. And fits on the shaft like that. Got a bronze bushing. This one is 10mm in diameter, 10mm long, and also 6mm ID. I've got this with a small hole that's going to be holding the shaft. This part that has an opening for the bearing, but it also has a diameter for the bronze bushing that goes in it, and there's a little spacer that goes between. So I just take this part and the shaft, there's a stop in there, you just have to push it all the way on until it hits the stop. So let's just press fit into there. This one we're going to start with the bronze bushing. I just take a pair of tweezers and just guide it down to make sure it's pretty flat. And then I take an 8mm rod and just press that in place. Maybe hammer it a couple times just to make sure it's seated. This bearing, if you want to do it with the tweezers too, you can do that. But that just goes in there and just press it against a flat surface so that that's seated. And this spacer will fit over that shaft, and then these will go together like so, and there we have our spindle. Sometimes there's this bearing and the bronze bushing are very close fit on that shaft. Sometimes it binds a little bit, so it's not, it spins very easily. Sometimes it binds, so what I do is I just take a small round file and I'll just go in here and try to open up the diameter of that bronze bushing just a little bit. It doesn't have to be a lot, but if this is binding, then that usually solves the binding issues. Alright, I'm going to epoxy in these magnets. I've got one end marked with an X, and I've counted out 24 magnets. And I'm just going to first glue in every other magnet, all with the same polarity. So you gotta push them in and just make sure you kind of control them so they don't jump out again. So I push it in and then I slide off to the side. And then just press on them to push the epoxy around. So those all have the same polarity. And then hold them in place while they set. Put some wax paper over it, and then a board to keep them all in the same plane. Just a little weight on it. And just let that set. Alright, let's look at what we got so far. These are all in the X position, so I just mark them. Okay, so before I erase this one, or that mark, I make sure I put the opposite mark on this side. Okay. a little alcohol and wipe that one clean. And so now I'm going to put those and that orientation in all the empty spots. Epoxy kind of oozes off the sides, so it will seat well. Okay. Put wax paper over that, and our board. Keep everything in a nice plane, and set a little bit of weight on that, and then just let it cure. Okay, then the next thing to do is to mount the plate. I chose to use the bearing part of the spindle to mount in here, and so you just take some number 4 screws, 1/2 inch long, and attach them. That's pretty much all there is to it. Just be careful not to over tighten them, because it is only plastic. Okay, I've got my winding fixture, and I've got a spool of 35 gauge wire, and the object is to put 559 turns. Oh, I'm sorry, 549 turns on this this coil. So I'm just going to take a stick, put it in there, and start turning and counting. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I'll just keep going. Every time I get to 100, I'll stop and make a mark on a tally sheet, take a break, and then start some more. Okay, I just removed a couple of these wedges, and now I've got the coil. I just put some masking tape in each one of these spots. And then I made it so that these ends are coming out in the same spot here. Okay, I got my hot melt glue gun warmed up, and take these 2 little wires that come out between these 2 pieces of tape, and they're going to line up with this hole. So what I'm going to do is just bend them kind of at a gentle radius like that, and then I'm going to need some the tape is going to go through these slots, so I'll need some sharper bends here here, with a more gentle bend here. So I'm just kind of pre-forming these a little bit. Okay, so this part is going to slot in here, like that. The idea is to get it in a little bit, and then I tack it down with some glue. And just work my way around. I'm not going to put a lot of glue right here just yet, because I've got wires coming up here and I've got to put a diode, but I just start there, and just to make sure this doesn't come up too high, it's usually a good idea just to apply just a little bit of pressure here. Make sure that that's down. Cool off. Okay, so once that's in place, just go to the next coil here, and I'm just going to start with gluing just the right side of it. So I'll just work my way around, just gluing the right side of each of these coils, and then I'll go back and apply some more glue later. Anyway, that's probably the most tedious part of this assembly process, but it's got to be done. Okay, I did not glue in this area. I've got my 2 wires here. And now I'm going to take this diode, or rectifier, and this has the text so that it's visible. There's a plus, a minus, and then the 2 AC signals. And I'm just going to hot melt that in there. So it's flush. Okay, then I'll take these 2 magnet wires, I'll wrap them around these leads and solder them, and then I'll bring up a couple wires, a black and a red, to solder on the plus and the minus side here, and then I'll just push all that into this trough and fill it in with hot melt glue. Okay, this is a completed coil. If there's some high spots on the glue, you can just take the side of the glue gun while it's hot and just sort of melt them over and try to keep all the bumps to a minimum so that you can get the magnets as close as possible to the coils. But that's it. It's got a few strings on it, but we can pull those off. Now I'll just take the spindle, slide it in there, attach it with 4 screws, number 4 by half, if I'm not mistaken. I think so. And it'll be ready to go. Okay, a quick check on the scope to make sure everything's working okay. Just hooking up the wires of the turbine. And just going to, I got this hooked up. Okay, I'm just going to give this thing a little spin, just to get a signal here. Just a little fast, but let it coast down a little bit. Do a single sweep. We've got a peak-to-peak voltage of 7.6 volts and a frequency of 43.8 hertz. This is a bridge rectified signal. And I measured the stator resistance before I glued it all up, and it was around 514 ohms. So it's about where it should be. Alright, I've got to glue the 2 halves of the turbine together. What I do is just kind of wipe it off to the side here, and then just let the epoxy sort of sag down into the edge. Alright, once that's together, once I've got that applied, just set this in. And just put a little weight on the top and away it goes.